Thank you so much for joining us today for the College of Undergraduate Studies Faculty Enrichment. Today, we're talking about microlearning and reusable learning objects. And today you have the pleasure of hearing from two of us. I will be talking a bit about microlearning, and Nicole Penny will be talking about and showing some reusable learning objects. So if you stick with us through the microlearning portion, you'll get to see some examples of reusable learning objects that Nicole has created, and some reusable learning objects that we have access to showcase some different samples of what those look like. So first, let's start off with microlearning. And I could give a lot of information here about microlearning. I could get into the research that shows that this is an effective teaching strategy. I could get into information on how technology plays into it. I've attended microlearning conferences where everything there is related to microlearning and how it benefits faculty and benefits students. But today I'm just giving you a real brief 30,000-foot view of microlearning. So if you think of your course and the semester as a buffet, and a course session, maybe a class session, a 45-minute session, or an hour session as a meal, microlearning is a snack. So that gives you a food analogy for those of you that like those. Basically, microlearning is bite-sized 5 to 15-minute chunks of content. It's always focused on one topic or one learning objective. So if you were to take a section of a class that you had together or a section of a chapter, and you boiled it down to one topic, and you put together no more than 5 to 15 minutes of learning content for a student, that's considered microlearning. Another characteristic of microlearning is that it's accessible. So microlearning is something that is used by human resources and trainers within different fields of learning. So it could be on the job, on the go, or at the point of need, where the learner needs the content. For your students, it's accessible maybe on their phone, through our learning management system, or through a link that you provide to them. And it's engaging. So a lot of times, micro-learning elements will have an engaging, interactive component to it. Maybe it's visuals, maybe it's audio, maybe it's video. And it's responsive. Typically, it provides feedback. So you may present a few minutes of learning, and then you provide a test, like a little couple quiz questions, or a couple areas where they can test their own knowledge by dragging and dropping things. That is really micro-learning in a nutshell. And we know from the research and from the pragmatic side of it that there are specific benefits of micro-learning for you, the faculty. Number one is, if you build it, you have it, right? We do the building for you, or we help you find things that are pre-built. So you have it. Once it's built, it's reusable term after term after term. And it serves to reinforce your teaching. So it's not replacing your teaching, but it's simply reinforcing the teaching that you're doing in the classroom or online. Students can take it with them and learn from it then. And it's a secondary teaching source, right? We're not saying get rid of the faculty or don't talk about these things in class, but simply add it as an additional element for students to study and return to as they need it. And another benefit for you, the faculty, is it really empowers students to take what they've learned from you in the classroom and then go out of the classroom and practice. There are some benefits also for them, the students. When you think of boiling down a bunch of content into bite-sized pieces, you're helping students focus on specific concepts one at a time. It's also easily accessible to them, meaning they don't need to go through a big file or a large website or a long video to find the small little pieces they want to review. Because it's already been boiled down and presented in bite-sized pieces, they know exactly which micro-learning unit to go to so that they can access the information they're looking for. It gives them repeated exposure. So very rarely do we ever return to a 30-minute or a 45-minute video to review one little piece of information, right? But when you offer students chunks of learning in 5-minute bite-sized digestible pieces, they're more likely to return to that small piece when they know they need to review it to improve their learning. Benefit for students is also that it's interactive. A lot of times, and Nicole will show this today, there are things to drag and drop and flip and move and click on so that the student is engaged with the material. And we know from the research that when we offer students an ability to interact with our content, they are therefore engaged. And when they're engaged in the learning, there are some specific outcomes. They have an increase in learner satisfaction. They have an increase in learning, and they're more likely to persist. And just a real brief view, a list of some different types of microlearning: quizzes, games, simulations, podcasts, graphics, infographics, short videos. And today we're looking specifically at reusable learning objects.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, so we're going to be talking about one type of microlearning, which is a reusable learning object, or an RLO. Okay, so what is a reusable learning object? Well, a reusable learning object, or an RLO, is simply a type of online instruction which uses a digital object to support and fulfill a specific learning objective. They're typically short, self-contained, as Lynn just said, micro-learning, so it's a small bite of a learning activity that is shared digitally or online with learners. Okay, so some characteristics of RLOs. I will just start right at the beginning with digital. Reusable learning objects are digital. They're fully online, so they're easy to distribute and share with your students. They can be beneficial for both online and in person. They can be quickly embedded into a course. Students can have access to them through their computer, on their phone. They're really simple to log on and see because they're always right there in their hand. Reusable learning objects are also self-contained. They support and fulfill specific learning object, and everything necessary for that fulfillment is contained within the reusable learning object. So they're designed to kind of be like a one-stop shop for a particular subject or skill that you're wanting to impart to your students. They're bite-sized, as Len said. It's type of micro-learning. And they're typically small in size and duration. They don't really require a lengthy time commitment for learning. They usually take around 5 to 15 minutes for students to walk through and complete. And this is done by chunking the material or offering it in more manageable or bite-sized pieces. They're interactive. Reusable learning objects are great for engaging learners with your content. They're really wonderful for taking learning content that could be static or two-dimensional and making it interactive and even fun for the learner. Students, as Lynn said, they can go in there and they can click and flip and uncover sometimes and just get immersed in the content that they're learning about. They're also reusable and flexible. They are reusable, meaning you can use them over and over and over again in each course, but they're also reusable in that they're easily adaptable. So you could go in and adapt it for a different kind of course if you wanted a different objective. They can be reused and reformatted and used in a variety of learning settings and in any content area or learning strategy. So I just wanted to show some examples of completed reusable learning objects. Some of them we made at the CLI team, and then some of them are examples that other people created. But there's a lot of different ways that you can use a reusable learning object. So the first one I wanted to show you is great for if you have a process that has a lot of different steps. Maybe the students are having trouble remembering the different steps to writing an APA formatted paper. So they could go in and let me show you. Using different layers, you can go in and have them walk through the different steps in a process, and it really gets them involved in the learning. So they can go in and click on each one and read through it. And then you can also, as you'll see in this second one, you can embed videos, you can embed links. So it's really helpful to also provide some additional supplemental learning materials for them. So if you wanted to say, okay, this is step 2 brainstorming, I want to give you a link, maybe some content as well, some writing, and then also a video. And this is a good thing for students to have in a course if you notice they're really struggling with this again and again. It might be a nice reminder to kind of embed, like in the beginning in the course resources, to kind of remind them these are the steps that you might need to use. So this is one example that you could use for an RLO of something where you want to lay out the steps to a process where students can kind of walk through that on their own. Another example is we have this virtual lab that we created. And this one is using a 360-degree image. So it's great for, this is an example in a hospital setting, but you could do it looking at a geographical location, a national park. You could do it at a museum where they're looking at art. And it's great for if you want your students to go in and select different parts. Like for this one, they're going into a hospital room, and they could click on the table, and this little thing pops up, and you could say, okay, this is a surgical table. You could list things about it. You can also, same as the other example, embed videos. You can embed links. The 360-degree image is just a great way to, again, immerse the student in the learning content and get them to interact in here. So that's another example of something that we could do in your course. Another one is an interactive timeline. And this one's great for if you're wanting your students to look through a sequence of events. So looking through the events in history, and this one's in the learning cycle, how it's changed and evolved over time. So you can see it's just kind of like a timeline that you might see in a textbook, but it's just a little bit more interactive. So they can come in and look at all these, but they can also click on them individually, and it'll open up a new tab just specific about what was happening during that time. So a timeline might come in handy in your course, and it's really good for, again, just getting students to learn more about that. And it's kind of walking them through the timeline as well, so they get to experience it a bit more. So that's really cool. And then we have one called Interactive Storytelling Experience. And this one is really interesting. It's great for immersing students into a learning experience. So I can just push play. But say you could use it for a case study, for something where you're wanting the students to kind of walk through the scenario a little bit more. It's just a really fun way. You can have them, as you can see, you can make it accessible. There's an audio, a text version, and really the possibilities are endless with RLOs. You can get as creative as you want to be. There's lots of different options that you can play around with. Another one could be this interactive photo collage, which is great for visualizing what students are learning. Let's see. So this one, you could come in and say you're wanting to give them different, like this one's different pictures of locations, and the students could come in and click on it and learn about that specific location, specific image, whatever fits best with your objective. So there's lots of different things that you can do. As you'll see, you can get really creative with these. And the thing is to make it fit specifically to what you're learning, the content. So as you're looking through these, I'm sure you're probably thinking of some opportunities that you could do in your course. Some places where this might fit. Okay, so when should you use a reusable learning object? As Lynn said, when you're presenting bite-sized learning content, when there's something that you really want to scale down and zone in on, this is a great thing to create an RLO for. When you're scaffolding steps in a learning process, you're wanting them to walk through these really specifically and pay attention to each step, and maybe it's something that they're needing to do over and over and over again. And of course, this might be a great opportunity for an RLO. It could be something in your course that your students really aren't connecting with, maybe some content that they're struggling to understand, that you think if they, maybe if they could just interact with this content a bit more, then this might be a great opportunity to create a reusable learning object. And when you want something just kind of simple, straightforward, and reusable, to boil it down, would be great for an RLO. So kind of if you're a good practice to do when you're thinking, well, how could I use an RLO? Maybe consider looking at your textbooks and seeing if you see anything in there like a chart or a diagram that students typically memorize that you think could be restructured in a more engaging and interactive way. Is there a process that your students need to understand but are struggling with because all the steps? A simple RLO that they could click through and refer back to in the course might be helpful. So there's lots of opportunities for using RLOs. And I think looking through your textbook and seeing things that you think, oh, this is a really cool part. They really should be paying attention to this, but maybe they won't because of how it is presented. And you think we could maybe create something that would be more engaging for them. That would be a great opportunity to create a reusable learning object. We're really excited to be working on creating these reusable learning objects, and we would really love to work with you and other faculty at SNU to create some. They're really fun and engaging and could be really beneficial to your students. So if this is something, kind of looking at those examples that you might want to learn more about, just don't hesitate to reach out, and we're more than happy to meet with you and brainstorm and talk about ideas for what we could create together.